This is the Iron Curtain, a wall of concrete, iron, and steel that separates the free world from the Kremlin's slave empire. Shrouded in ominous silence are the barbed wire and electric fences, guard towers and minefields, armed patrols, and floodlighted entanglements that span the perimeter of every communist-dominated frontier. It starts at the Arctic Ocean. Moving southward, it then skirts the Soviet coastline along the Baltic. It seals off Poland, then cuts through the heart of Germany, and envelops the captive nations of East Central Europe.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeon Dwellers Adventures. I'm your host Dylan, and today we are joined by JustWanya and greenFoxel for an episode of Behind the Curtain, where we dive into these gentlemen's work on the Fallout Iron Curtain mod. Before we do, I'd like to ask each of you to give a short introduction. Tell us where you're from, who you are, what you're about, all that good jazz. And Vanya, will start with you.
Okay. I'm JustWanya. I'm just another dude on the internet who works on mods, and I also publish that live on Twitch and YouTube how I make these mods. I'm the project lead of Fallout Iron Curtain. I also help out around in Concord Stories and also in Fallout Empire Waste, so I'm all around the Fallout modding community.
And Foxel, yourself?
I'm greenFoxel. I'm the lead of Concord Story. Was in the Sim Settlement 2 team, which is where I started modding, basically. And I'm a 3D, 2D designer of Iron Curtain.
Awesome. Well, I'm behind the ball as far as modding goes. I am a big user, but I have a lot to learn about what you guys do. So I'd like to start with your guys' modding origins. What first sparked your passion for modding, and how did those early experiences like Lego Racers, Tony Hawk, Battlefield, shape how you create today?
Well, I started in what is approximately 2005, so it is a little while ago now. I don't have a definite number on that due to the fact that I didn't even know that it had a term, that it was already adjacent to game development. When I thought like, hey, I want to have my own decks in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. And so I looked into the files and I saw that back then they were just simple PNGs basically. And I put in my own boards, my own face for like the skaters and whatnot, and for a matter of fact, that a bunch of extra cut stuff that was in those folders that they never used, but when you just changed the name, you could replace it and then use it in your game. And that's basically what sparked the origin of just, I just want to bring something in that I find cool, and that also then, of course, carried over to other games. So in Battlefield 2, we had a big leash out by the community that wasn't happy with Battlefield 2, and EA back then gave us the BF2 editor, basically a toolkit with which you can do a lot of stuff in that game. And I started to design maps and stuff like that, and worked on some teams there on occasion, just to bring in cool stuff and just to have fun creating something. And from that point on, it carried on. Then I took a break for a couple of years because real life happened, and I was busy doing other things. And then when COVID happened and my job as a event technician lied in shambles, I kind of found my way back into it again.
Now, just to follow up on that one, because I was a big Tony Hawk guy back in the day. I even got 2 of his signatures somewhere around this this Fallout mess. Which one did you start with?
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, and I also modded Tony Hawk's American Wasteland a little bit, but not as much. The total amount of games I modded in total, mods that I have created for games is like over 20. I sat down yesterday just for the day to count through, and I was at 24, but I'm pretty certain I missed the one or other games have been around. But from the Tony Hawk's games, only those two, for a matter of fact.
Got it. And then Foxel, what's your origin story?
My origin story is a little bit different. It's hard to tell when I started modding actually, because I kept doing things when I was a child that could be related to modding this day, like customizing your computer, etc. The first thing that could qualify as such is a bit boring actually. So it was like early 2000, like 2001, something like that. And I was learning German and Latin. And I had a software that allowed me to learn German. Like, I have question to answers, I give the right answer, very simple. And there was no software in Latin because, Latin is a dead language, sort of. So I just modded the thing to create a Latin version with my lesson. So after that, I started playing a lot with the RPG Maker softwares, which is basically a big toolbox to make your own RPG. So you got a lot of things that are relative to modding, like you can make your own quests, you can design your own map, level design, scenario, music, etc. It's very close to it. Then it was Civilization 2, which was a 2D game and very easy to mod because you could replace nearly every asset. And after that, there was a big time when I didn't do that for quite some times. And in 2017, I think it was when Sim Settlement 1 was around, I tried my hand at modding. Then I just gave up because I got screwed by the nav mesh, like everybody is. So I just gave up for a few years there. And COVID happened, and I was like, okay, so I have plenty of time. What do I do? I started modding again, and this time making add-on packs for Sim Settlement 2, which is a mod for Fallout 4. Which led me a few years later, like 3 years ago, to start Concord Stories, which is this thing. And Vanya joined very early. I think you could even say that you were there at the beginning, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah, like, I was like working from 2020 to 2023 in an indie game studio, and that didn't turn out well. And I was kind of fed up with like that kind of sector again pretty early on. And then Foxel here invited me to Merry Modding Days, which is the modding advent calendar that Foxel and Vader were doing the past years. And after I delivered there something, Foxel kept at it, was like, yo, hey, you seem to be very good at level design. How would you feel like designing a little cell for Concord Stories? And he had to give me a little push here and there because like I was very, very demotivated to get going on that one, really, after a bunch of like negative experiences right away. But then I started liking it, and so yeah, then I designed like, what was it, like 12 cells in just 1 year. So every month there was like one new interior cell with everything in it, basically completed, that I could deliver, and that really sparked it up, where I then, yeah, found some more potential in myself that I didn't know was there.
That, you guys both made a similar point to where the modding, was semi-adjacent to game development, one step away as less of a full-time, although I'm sure you could devote as much time as a full-time. And then Vanya, you may have just answered this, but looking back, what was the aha moment in your modding history where you realized this could be something bigger than a hobby, more like a passion?
It was when I got into contact with that indie game studio. They were working on their first game, and they wanted that to be a 3D RPG, where I already was like, that's quite excessive for a first project. And everyone on that team except myself never worked on video games before, and boy, you could feel that, because unfortunately they were at this kind of spike of the learning curve that we all have. So there's no bad blood from my side, but we all have this learning curve where we learn about something and we think we know what we are doing, but we actually don't. And that's exactly where they were at. So me, who of course had years of prior experience, got frustrated very often over decisions where I could clearly say it won't work out that way, but nobody was listening, because they were all such a strong crew together. And that's also something that's important, that you have a crew that like sticks together. But yeah, that's essentially where I realized, okay, I have potential to do more. If these people can make it professionally, and they did, I could too, you know? And so this is where I more and more brought it into my streaming business that I had going on already at that point. And it was like going back and forth with things and seeing like what works best for me. You know, it's always kind of a hard thing to find yourself in certain things like that, and to get your groove in. But I feel like meanwhile I've established that quite well. And yeah, now basically it's my main profession of modding and producing content in that regard. And yeah, kind of showed myself like, yeah, it is possible, you can do it, and you had it in you. But it wouldn't have been without Foxel's active motivation there.
And then Foxel, did you also have a moment where you just knew that, you know, modding was something you were going to do?
It's hard to say exactly when it happened, because there was a few big moments that happened. I can't tell which one it was, be it having a full team on a meeting and say, oh my god, there's like 20 people, what the hell? Or visiting the actual studio, you know, and like, okay, I'm going there, what the hell? Like, I can say, I went to Bethesda, like, basically. And it's so funny because you see, I will not say who, but you say English. You see so many modders that just became full dev. I will not say whom, but trust me. So, and sometimes when you do some project, when you have every single component of an actual video game that's there to make a mod, be it music, proofreading, test, even performance test, which is something that is well, you expect from an indie studio, not a mod. And I feel like modding evolved during this last 15 years, and nowadays most of the team I see, they are semi-professional, and some of them actually have this as a work. Like for example, we got our for Concord Story, we had a 3D designer that is actually a professional and that works for a huge brand, because, you know, that was a way for him to make a 3D model for different boards. He worked on Concord Story, also worked for Fallout Miami, and now, you know, boom, it just worked out for him. And I feel like the more time you spend, not thicker, what's the word when it's thinner. The thinner the border is between modding and professional work.
Now that's on the work side, but beyond just adding content, what does modding mean to you? Is it collaborative storytelling, digital archaeology, an act of love for the original games, or something more personal?
I think kind of something of everything that you just mentioned, really. Like, for me, it's a lot of like personal, I wouldn't call it like statement posting directly, but like, for me as a German with Eastern European heritage, Fallout, Iron Curtain, certainly, I think just those two things in the know give you a good impression of like, oh yeah, this is a passion project. This is a very personal project as well, not just some random idea. That is something where a lot of things come together. But at the end of the day, it's also because we do love Fallout, and I do love Fallout, and feel like there's so much more in the stories that we fans can also tickle out of it if we want to, because I think it's just overall a cool concept of like looking what happened in other countries aside from the United States of America. And so, yeah, I guess at the end of the day, really all the points that you mentioned.
I can say on how you mentioned that when the season 2 of the Fallout on Prime came out, and they used, I believe, in one of the end credits, showing basically Canada. For me, that was a big moment because I'm one that's dived into the lore, watched the 3-hour videos, and been like, what happened to the other countries in Fallout?
Yeah, it absolutely was. Just like the satellite that we saw in season 1 with the USSR's SSSR inscription on it. Like, things like these are just always kind of cool, and very interested to see how that will further go, if they will expand on that or not. I think it's not necessary to make Fallout work. I mean, for me, I'm a casual fan at the end of the day. Like, I enjoy anything Fallout, even if it's not canon or not super low accurate, I can still enjoy it. So I may be the wrong person to debate the logical aspects of certain things right there. But that's also one reason why I chose a Fallout outside of the American continent, where I have way more freedom in that regard. Especially when it's a country that I grew up in and just know. So, yeah.
And Foxel, what are your thoughts?
For me, it's a lot of passion project. I mean, like Vanya just said before, we all love Fallout. We just want to see more of it. It's also a very good tool to shape a story and make it interactive. Actually, the material is okay. I would not say it's easy, but it's when you get the gist is fairly intuitive to tell your story inside the game. And I for Concord Story, it was a way, because I think Fallout 4 was 10 years ago, something like that, and I just liked them. All
Too long ago.
My previous career, I started it playing Fallout 4, so that's how old that is. it's horrible, but yeah. And there is something I just enjoy with the game, is something that was added last minute. You know, the Minutemen and the settlement building. Having talked to the devs, and they have also confirmed it online. It was a last-minute addition to the game, but it just changed the game so much. Like, you were not only living your own story, you were also going through a living wasteland that will react to your actions. And as an RPG player that just love to see the consequence of my action, I was a huge Bloodline fan for that. Bloodline, which was made by Troika, which is a studio founded by the creator of Fallout. It's more a vampire game, but it's all about consequences of your choices, so I just love it. And yeah, for Concord Story, I just wanted to see more of Boston, more like, okay, so we have the action of the player, but how are the Wastelander reacting to it? What happened when you actually start to rebuild society? So that's the main idea behind this mod. And as for Iron Curtain, I lived 2006. That's even further away in time. I lived in Berlin around that time, so I really love Berlin, basically. And I feel like it's a great way to show different perception of the Fallout universe. Because Berlin is not only Germany. First, you have two Germanys, two for the price of one. Yeah. One of them is very horrible, but disregard that. And you also got some little view of the different countries that are settled there, like the USSR, America. Well, yeah, you already saw America in Fallout, but still, you can see America there if you want. The British, the French, but also, yeah, you also have a lot of Turkish population, so that's interesting. And I feel like Berlin was really a city during the Cold War where everybody just met, and there was the military service in France until the 80s, I think. So I have a lot of people from my family that actually served in Berlin, and just it was different town, very unique. So yeah.
I think especially with the timeline split, that area in itself, even just in our timeline, is a crazy moment in history to study. So to add the Fallout flair to that area is going to be epic to see. And you guys both touch on it, the freedom you have, in an area you guys both know well, Vanya, you grew up in, to take that and put your spin on it with Fallout. I'm definitely super excited to see. Now, into the building. How do you balance technical limitations like creation kit constraints, performance compatibility, with your artistic vision in building these worlds? Can you also share a time when pushing those boundaries taught you something deeper about your creativity or resilience?
Yeah. So for one, I always wanted that Fallout Iron Curtain takes place in a nuclear winter, just a couple of years after the bombs, because we only have Operation Anchorage DLC for Fallout 3 that features winter. And so I thought it would be a very cool idea, because I just love winter as a survival mechanic where you have to, protect yourself against the cold as well. And this is where I already found the first few problems, because of course you cannot just go ahead and give every single object in the game an additional texture or additional material essentially that makes it look snowy. Because that's a lot of work, because you cannot just make it black and white or just white. That won't work, of course. And second, the implementation is then very complex with new materials, not to speak from the total size of the mod as well, in a time where currently people are no longer building their own PCs because the RAM already is double the price of what it used to be. And that's where I discovered an alternate way for myself, and that was just maybe utilizing simply decals for that snow texture everywhere, which is kind of a thing that we are currently investigating further, because it seems like at a certain size of them, they no longer have a good moment where they load into the world properly. So we are currently investigating that one as well, but a mix of both of those two options can definitely work. And this is where I discovered for me, hey, I'm very great at finding, solutions. I'm very great at utilizing what I have, without bringing in new stuff. Overall, utilizing base assets of the game is a very big part of our job currently, where we construct new 3D models just of many pre-existent 3D models already and simplify them to save ourselves on all that work that an extra 3D designer has to do. Or the implementation of new 3D models that also then require, of course, a lot of adaptation with their level of details and all those kind of things. Another thing where I also look back to and think that was pretty good was when Foxel and I sat down and we were okay, how can we make it the smartest that there's actual cold out there that the player has to protect themselves from, and that is reutilizing the radiation markers and making a duplication from them and just changing them from radiation damage over to cryo damage, while also applying that the player's character, or any character walking through that zone, gets that cryo skin. When you shoot somebody with a cryolite in Fallout 4, you see this kind of cold skin basically put onto their body. Same with the corpses in Vault 111, that this one is just temporarily applied while you have this effect. And that then invited my creativity in okay, now we need something to balance this out. And I already had something prepped in that regard of soups and cigarettes and teas and coffee that warm you up for a temporary time, so you have a little bit of a cryo resistance to counter that coldness. And I feel that's a very cool survival mechanic that works pretty greatly together. And this is where a lot of previous projects kind of prepped me for greatly in that regard. So I guess those two key moments definitely were one of those for me.
And so, I mean, you got my gears turned in my head, because I was thinking the radiation damage, switch it for the cryo. Would that then mean that you have taken the like Radaway and Radix and applied those to like the T's and stuff, to warm?
No, the T's have their own cryogenic damage protection effect, basically. Because basically how it's done is that you just use the marker and you just switch it, like the way this game works a lot of with like so-called keywords. And you basically just make sure that those keywords match for the cryogenic damage, and then like whenever you create a new item that gives you cryogenic protection or resistance rather, gives you cryogenic resistance, so they're actually like their own markers at the end of the day. And Radaway and Radix will not help you against the cold. There will be other means, like heating pads and whatnot, that you will have to use, though I'm still working on those. So not try to overpromise here something, but there's a lot of fun ideas that I had to think of with the recent cold winters that we had here locally that were very extreme, where I found myself new measures of how you can battle it and maybe put it into the game as well on a very subtle and fun way.
That's very interesting. I'd love to see how that works out. Yeah, give me like a little coal fire furnace.
Yeah, kind of at the end of the day, yeah. So yeah, that's the only thing is that one thing I haven't investigated myself yet fully is one idea was or has been that those cold radiation markers also can disappear over time. So when we put them into an own layer of each cell, both exterior and interior, that depending on how you progress through the story and rebuild Berlin, you can actually make those cold radiation markers disappear, essentially, with just putting them into their own layer and just disable the layer with a certain quest completion and whatnot. But that's all still very future music, as we say in German, as we're still like very early in the development process. But all those things already have been thoroughly weighed and looked into with other projects like Concord Stories before.
And then Foxel, what was your experience with the balance of technical limitations and your artistic vision?
There are a few actually, and Vanya, you just mentioned before the RAM. That's really something that I did not expect when I started Concord Story. Just for example, Concord Story employs doors. Like you have, in Fort 4, you have all these houses in the Commonwealth with post-war towns. And the idea that the world population system will place doors on this building, right? And the problem is you have to place these doors in the first place in the creation kit. Thing is, Boston is packed with a lot of stuff in the creation kit, and it can get very, very slow to load a cell that is inside Boston. Like sometimes I'm taking like 10 minutes. It's a lot. And often when I was starting the project, like, you know what, it's not a big deal. The RAM is decreasing in price every year. Yeah, we were 3 years ago, remember? And now it's more like tenfold every month. Oops. It's a huge problem because you also have to take in account the fact that players will not have better computer. Because you got all these mods that were very resource intensive that appeared like 6-7 years ago, like SimSettlement 2 is one of them, for example, but I also think of Fort London. Because yeah, the PCs of players got better since the start of Fort 4, so that was okay. But nowadays, they don't get much better since of the AI bubble. Also for technical issues, I can think a lot, technical issue versus images in mind. I can think a lot about the immersion. So you want to have the player coming in places that feel alive, with characters that have their unique story. Problem is, if you talk about a city or huge hubs, you have a lot of characters. For every single of these unique character, you need to have unique text. You need to write this dialogue, to have it proofread, because a huge chunk of us are not native speaker. So if it's not American English, it's it's very visible. You have the recording, the verification with the voice actor. Oh, I forgot the casting, because we need to cast the voice actor. Then the equalization. Yes, so you have to sacrifice the fact that you want every character to be unique and have a lot of generic NPC. Otherwise, you would just never finish the cell or the house, And it's something that I think you can only learn by actually making a DLC size mod before you just don't realize it, because it's small proportion, it's like exponential. For coming back to Iron Curtain, since I make 3D models, I just played before with the 3D model of Bethesda when I was doing level design. Like a huge Lego box. I was like, okay, I make this place, this wall, perfect. And sometimes I was like, hey, why is this wall empty? Why is this wall so weird? And that's something that I just realized when you actually make 3D, you're like, okay, if they did not make empty faces, there will be even more texture, the game would load even more polygons, and it will be slower and slower. And when you think about an entire town, you have to sacrifice a lot of things, otherwise the game wouldn't load. And for Berlin, it's even bigger. We're talking about an entire town, and we have been talking a lot about how to make it resource-wise okay for the player by dividing the town, in different sectors, which we haven't yet decided which solution we're going to take, but we have floated different ideas like dividing Berlin into different sectors, which law-wise is perfect because Berlin was divided into 4 sectors, so that's perfect. You got you got a perfect explanation in universe for that. But I feel like the main thing is that you have to balance your ambition with the computer of the players, basically.
Definitely. And you guys both touched on something that goes full circle with the AI and the RAM in the last couple of years, which leads into our next question of, in today's world of official tools, AI, and big studio remakes and remasters, why is grassroots modding still so vital, and what unique freedoms or responsibilities does it carry?
I give Foxel the head start with that one.
Back on the hot mic, Fox.
I think it's important as modding is often the entry door to the actual studios, and I'm not talking only about Bethesda. One studio that has a lot of modders that became dev is, for example, Paradox Interactive, which publish games like Crusader King 3, Heart of Iron 4, and nearly all of the dev are former modders, and I think it's important, if you want to have studio that connect with the player, that you have actually developer and also manager that love the game actually, so people that modify them. Also, it's important to still do modding in a way, because that's how you convince studios that the player owns the game in a way, like they own the right to modify them as they see fit. And I think it was which studio publishes Take-Two? Trying to remember. It was not GTA, but
Rockstar?
Rockstar. They just sued a modding platform for one of the big games. I forgot which one it was. 5M. Okay, yeah, that's GTA. Yeah, right. They just closed they just bought 5M and closed the rival. GTA, which has a lot of modding, so what does that mean in the end? Like, you refuse that the player modify their way to play games? It's not a good sign.
That's interesting because I stepped away for a couple of years, but I was a 5M player on the RPG servers for a while. Entry level was like still learning the lingo and stuff, but that's news to me that they went in and closed the accessibility to creativity. But Vanya, what are some of your thoughts?
For one, of course, if we go by the legal side, of course, the companies do own their franchise, they do own their games, they are technically allowed to say whether or not your work is to be altered, derived, whatever. I mean, we do the same ourselves as well. How would you feel if somebody takes your podcast, makes an own entire thing from it? It's always a little bit problematic because for one, people can create something that's awesome, and also people can use it to create something that's vile. And so, of course, for the image of a company, it is always a very tough spot to be in. And I think a lot of people don't realize that sometimes. I'm surprised that we still have as many companies as we do that do support modding, because I've seen it myself first. What's the first hand? Thank you. With EA and Battlefield, like EA put out Battlefield 2, the players were very dissatisfied with the product, which I already at the time didn't fully understand why, because it didn't have a story mode. And I mean, what other story mode than killing people can you put into Battlefield? Anyway, they gave us the BF2 editor kit, and people put out amazing mods, also some mods that were questionable, of course, that's just how humanity is. But EA then had more and more people complaining, oh, those modders do a better job than you, and that's then where EA went against it and said, you know what, we're just gonna no longer do that for the future. If you cannot appreciate that we give you that creative freedom, we will just no longer do it. So it kind of is a thing where both sides, in my opinion, have to be a little bit, have to establish a common communication there, because I've seen it, especially ever since I started streaming how I mod. I've seen comments of people where you sit there and would want to facepalm you back and forth because you cannot believe how people think sometimes, and think how easy the world is when it's actually very complicated. So for one, I think, yes, gamers have a very, very good reason to demand that the games they purchase is their own to some degree, that it's no longer taken away from them. On the other hand, we also have to respect copyrights and respect, hey, some companies may not want their work to be derived in a certain way. It's a very, very tough spot and a very big gray zone to be in, where I think we could make a whole podcast about it by itself, because there are so many moral questions as well. And I always have been rather in the middle of that, where I'm like, yes, for one, I think gamers should absolutely have creative freedom. On the other, some people may use it for creative freedom that you really do not want to see. And that's the risk that you have to take as a company. And some don't go that risk. And I honestly understand why. So, yeah.
And I'll just take a second on this one, because I think it's important also. Why you guys as modders are important. Foxel, you mentioned how a lot of studios now are made up of a lot of former modders. The creativity that you guys bring to it isn't just from the game itself. It's an outside perspective. Like when you're in a box, you're in the box. The ideas that go around can differ, but when you're outside looking in, you bring perspective. And everybody has their own. So the more modders that we have, the more perspective, the more ideas. Those things can go on inside of a studio, but having the outside perspective, I think, is a big point. And with the 5M stuff and shutting it down, yes, you used the comparison of if somebody took my podcast and made something great, I would obviously be very grateful for that. I would be flattered. That would be the word. I would be flattered. Even if they ended up doing better than me, if they give me credit or they don't, that's what it started from. And on the same end of that, if somebody created something vile, Hopefully it wouldn't take off. I would leave that to, like the people consuming it. There is going to be that balance in between, but obviously making something great from something and having that gain more traction than something that would be vile is what I would hope from the community. But that is just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we gotta also realize that developers like Fox and myself, we don't make decisions. It's the people in suits who make decisions. And that is, I think, one of the most common misunderstandings why certain opinions that fly around should maybe be reevaluated. Not yours, just in general opinions that I see on the internet sometimes with like, oh, the devs are lazy kind of approaches, where it's like, I think you kind of should reevaluate that if us developers really are that lazy, when we already are working over hours, underpaid, maybe readdress your concerns to somebody else on the command chain there. And on the other, that's essentially what it comes down to. Like, if you have a manager who just bought themselves into the company and doesn't really know much about video gaming other than how profitable that industry is, and it kind of took over a lot of other industries in absolutely no time in terms of profitability, of course they will have an attitude about stuff. And I myself had a few instances that I cannot name here because of signed NDAs, where I had managers saying things where you sit there as somebody who works on the front and wonder yourself if they ever played a video game, even to begin with. Just like you have it sometimes with consumers, where you ask yourself if they ever played any other video game than the one that they just consumed. So it is, at the end of the day, really something very humane in that regard, a very human factor, and that I kind of find that very, very enlightening and very it gives me even more spirit when I have that, on the other hand. So on the one hand, it's sad. On the other, I think it's also good that way, because that's how we get inspired to do more. I wouldn't be sitting here right now and talking to you about this project if I didn't have those instances before in my life, of course. So at the end of the day, every negative thing also can contribute to something positive. And that's where, like, whenever people take stuff from me and make negative stuff about it, I honestly don't really care, because once people have made their own version about you inside their head, it's their problem and not mine. So that's my attitude. But I understand that some people are a little bit more focused on that, on that prestige of their brand and their name. So yeah.
Right, and that's the other flip side of the coin from being on the outside of the box looking in. Everybody is their own expert of their experiences, but can't know everything going on behind the scenes.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So our next question, or Foxel, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. I wanted to add that it's also very important to have a good relation with the developer, etc. Because when you have, for example, a studio that makes the effort to provide modding tool, to provide regular update and regular communication, it's very important to stay modest in the way you present your mod and the way you communicate with them. Because at the end of the day, they are in the same situation. It's just that they have a panel saying, I'm the dev, but then not so different. They're just on the other side of the screen, that's all.
Yeah, like, one thing that I always keep saying in my streams very actively is, like, I'm very thankful that Bethesda gives us that opportunity, because it's a privilege that they can take away at any moment. Especially now where they're owned by Microsoft, you never know what Microsoft's next move will be on that regard, when they see, okay, they spend so much money and resources on, giving modders resources and, like, having the creation club and whatnot, and putting out updates for Fallout 76 from suggestions of the community and whatnot. At some point, they may actually be like, you know what, we have another that. We're just gonna, turn off that sync, and you're now stranded. So that can happen at any day, really. And that's one thing why it's so important to really show that gratitude and really be, as Fox just said, be modest about it, and also understand our role here, that we can be legally shut out of the whole process any given day, and all the work could have been for nothing then.
Yeah, and I have an example that was published a few months ago. someone made full or still making a full core version of the game Vampire Redemption, which was owned by Activision, the license, on Skyrim. So Skyrim, Bethesda territory, and the license of Vampire was bought by Paradox Interactive. So there was an occasion where Activision tried to shut down the mod, despite not owning the license anymore. So they just had the creator had the advice of Paradox and Bethesda to how to make the mod in a way that he doesn't have any legal problem. So imagine the kind of efforts that some society do, like, okay, we are going to give you advice. I mean, yeah, if anything, yeah, one should be grateful because, yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship, and it even helps the company in question because you don't have to, okay, you still have to form someone to provide them tools and to teach them how it works inside the company. But when you have so many people that already knows how editing the game works, how the engine works, it's, I wouldn't say free recruitment, but it streamlines the process a lot.
Streamlining the process, and I think it instills a confidence in the community where, as Vanya said, they could be investing a lot of money on the back end. And like, why are we providing all of these kits to, you know, like these modders out there or game developers? And it really creates a community of trust between a game studio and the players and people that interact with the game, which, you know, in other studios, you know, the trust is a big thing. You know, you can put out a great game, but if, I think Ubisoft, with that end user license agreement, there's some games that have just disappeared because they own the rights. And if it was a game you loved, you can't play it anymore unless you got a hard copy and no internet connection.
Yeah, and the problem is when one company starts with that, the others will do it too because they're like, hey, they did it, and nobody like complained about it because EA was actually the first to start with that. Yeah, I mean, we had this this one action with Need for Speed World, which used to be an MMO racer, where EA just decided one day, okay, we're going to shut down the service because the studio we actually had to work on this, we closed them because we didn't see a purpose in them otherwise. And then like they realized, oh, well, what do we do with this game? Yeah, let's close it then. And lots of people were upset, and there was this crew of Polish modders who then basically tried to basically revive that game under a new name, and they got sued by EA for like tens of thousands several times. And yeah, at the end of the day, yes, it's kind of EA's legal right to do so. On the moral question, of course, also is like, hey, if I sold somebody an apple, I can also not just, you know, de-godify them and be like, yeah, give me my apple back, you know, like you cannot do that. Like, it's not how this should work.
And I want to make a correction because I do love Ubisoft. It was the EA game Need for Speed. That is the one that I was thinking of. I knew it was a racing
exactly.
game.
And I think we all love the studios and the products that they release. We just don't love so much the policies that are sometimes attached to it. I think that's a very important mark to make here. Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to add something about that. Something that changed from before is that now this question of rights of who owns the game have reached public debate and politics. In Europe, we got the European Parliament when a citizen can bring a petition. If it reaches like 1 million of signature, it can be voted by the European Parliament and made law. And you have this initiative called Stop Killing Game that made the news. Probably one of the ideas that to force the developers of an MMO to provide a solution to either play offline or for the player to re-host said game by their own means. And there was this case that happened like 6 months ago with Nintendo that decided that if you played a modified version of the Switch, they would just transform your Switch into a brick, like no longer working. That didn't fly with Europe. They just went very hard at Nintendo, and now if you play the Switch modified in Europe, you cannot play the internet games anymore because, you know, you're cheating basically, but they cannot do more. The console has to still work. So now it's changing, like the politician and the public is speaking about it. So let's see how it will evolve in the next few years. I'm very curious.
As am I, and I'm glad those have both gone into the public eye, and that we have, all of our countries have an avenue now to petition those types of things, which are important to us. So for our next section, I have individual questions for each of you. Foxel, I'm going to start with you. As the project lead for Concord Stories, how do you manage a bit of everything while letting contributors like Vanya bring their full vision to life in a true community project?
He doesn't.
The short answer, yeah. By the skin of my teeth.
That was the answer during the first month, which very fast reached the point like, hey, this is not sustainable. Okay, I will explain why. So the project at first was mostly the sales, so level design. So we had this thing, we still have, by the way, called Modding Monday. Every Monday we stream with different streamers and we raid each other. So we started that like 3 years ago. I think I'm correct. And the idea is that we will just start a level design of a new place. Often they are houses or dungeons. And when you just do basic level design, it's very fast, like you don't go into detail, you don't go too much into the quest, you don't go too much into the character, that's okay. But the more you progress, the more you think, oh, let's make this thing better, and this thing, and these things, and everything starts blowing out of proportion. So whenever you have some guy saying, hey, I want to make this cell, nowadays, like, okay, so there is this level design, that's going to take way more time than before, because we all got better, obviously, but you have now all the scenario, all the characters that will have day and night cycles. It's something that would take like a few evenings, like maximum a week. Now we're talking about months, if it's not more sometimes. So it's important nowadays, and that's a lesson I learned during the first part of the project, to say, okay, so we have this idea and where can we put it, and what purpose will it serve for the rest of the mod. And sometimes I even have to shut down ideas like, okay, cool, I like your idea of shop. Problem is we have already 7 grocery stores. That's a bit too much. It's Concord Story, not Concord Shops. I'm exaggerating a bit, but you see the idea. And sometimes it's important to also scale down things. Like you would have a house with many characters. Like, yeah, we need to cut this character because otherwise we'll never finish the time. So yeah, nowadays we have also the main quest that did not exist at first. Because at first the idea is that it was open bar, everybody would just dump his ID. Yes, we do it, and we're like, okay, we need a structure that guides the player through the wallboard, a funnel, a main quest, which was very important. So,
now, did that main quest start out as an idea on the storyboard with others that eventually, grew into this is the one that it's going to be centered around, or how did that come about specifically?
That was mostly Vanya and myself that actually thought about that and brainstorm. It was like 2 years ago, something like that. We're like, okay, we need a main quest. We have different quests with different stories, with Triggerman, with the Italian district of Boston. Like, hey, could we make something out of it? And yeah, we basically feel like, okay, what is the faction that's not touched by mods in 4.4? And the Triggerman are not touched a lot. So like, okay, let's go with it.
Interesting. And then next for you, Vanya, you were one of the first major contributors. Can you tell us about creating standout locations like, correct me if I'm wrong, the casino, Benito's Pizzeria, and Wastelanders Watchers? Does that sound right?
Yeah. I have to be honest, I created so many cells for so many projects over the years, it's very hard for me to remember what I created. Don't even know what the actual first cell was that I made for Concord Stories. Do you remember, Foxel? What was the first one?
It's easy to tell because I have a huge document with all the cell and
Yeah.
its historic order. That would be the Comic Cafe.
Oh, yes,
technically.
yes. So there
Comic
was
Cafe?
the Comic Cafe.
Comic Cafe. Okay, sorry.
Robot.
I'm into our next section already.
Close enough.
Sure.
Commies and
Sure.
comics very close together. No. Yeah, the Comic Cafe. I almost forgot about that. Goodness. Sorry, that took me
then-
aback. Yeah, so no. Basically, Foxel said, like, yeah, if you have a cool idea for, like, a shop, a story, whatever, that would be nice. And so I got this idea, hey, we have all these collectibles in the wasteland, like all the magazines, the outfits, the bobbleheads and whatnot. And I personally, my Fallout 4 playthroughs, I always struggled with putting that somewhere. I was like, where do I put all the stuff? And so I was like, hey, it would be cool to have an interior that is not per se a player home, but more like almost like a museum of some sort, where you bring in the stuff, you get paid for it for bringing it in there, and then it's like on permanent display, and you can keep a duplication of the item that you brought them. And then store it away in your stash or whatever. And that's how the idea of the Comic Cafe was born, that now sees a revival for Fallout Iron Curtain again as the Collectors Guild on the Museum Island in Berlin in a way bigger fashion, because we have a little bit of troubles when it comes to touching like base items of the game, of course, where you got to be very sensible and very careful of it. So yeah, we haven't fully tossed the idea of the Comic Cafe because I never really finished that, really. Yeah, I had a friend who wanted to work with me on it, and they never showed up for that, so it kind of got lost in the wind, basically. But it's not completely off the table. But that was how it started for me, and then from there onwards, I saw so many more potential stories for Concord Stories, and this is then how I was like, yo, hey, okay, we have those triggermen. What do you associate with the mafia? Well, Italians. What kind of community is very underrepresented in Fallout? Italians. Let's build a pizzeria, you know? So like from one thought to another, you had plenty of new ideas. Then the Bibliodome, which is a library where it was like, hey, we have the Boston Public Library that has barely any books, and Fallout 4 doesn't have any books you can read at all. Let's make readable books, you know? Like, things like these then came up, and we investigated, and a lot of that stuff really becomes very fruitful right now, and it's awesome to see, and it also prepped us, of course, for a bigger project in the future, which in that case would, of course, be Iron Curtain.
Giving a little glance at my next one. Which it's fun. We'll go into it. So how is moving from standalone mods like your hilarious K1337 submarine to big team efforts like Concord Stories changed your creative process or sense of fulfillment?
I always hated making things about myself. I have a very negative self-image. I have to sadly confess. But I'm working on it. Every day I'm working very hard on it. I just love working in teams, not only because we all have so cool ideas, but also things are getting done. Like if I was sitting down trying to make something like Iron Curtain entirely myself, I wouldn't be done in like 50 years with that. You know, you need people with expertise who have done very clever ideas as well. And interacting with those humans is like part of the process, I think, and that's what I love about it, because people can be so inspiring. Like I know we often tend to be like very cavemen like in our IT sectors of like, yeah, people, I don't want to interact with them. But I for one, I'm like a philanthrope, I think is what you call it, right? When somebody is like actually very interested in human beings, and that's also what led me to like do all the streaming business and whatnot, to like get to know people and know their stories, because you will find very wise lessons and inspirational stories from every single one of them that you can use for your creations or like just for yourself as personal growth. And that's where I see potential in teamwork. It's personal growth and growth of others at the same time. That's what's so beautiful about it. And for my part, I majority of my modding career has been alone all the time, and it always felt very lonely and very demotivating, because it's very hard to stick at it when you're all on your own. And especially with some experiences like the indie game studio that I talked about, where like you really feel like you're the only one who knows what they're doing at the end of the day. It really is tough then to like have that initiative by yourself when you know there's people out there. You just have to find them. And once you found those people, oh boy, chef's kiss. And that's what I had with plenty of people in the past 2 years now, past 2-3 years, where you have very ambitious people who know what they're doing, and they're also sharing the same vision, the same ambition for it. And when finally things are getting done, you know, you don't have to like work for years on something. It's just so liberating, you know, when you see results early on and whatnot. And I feel like it's not only that, but also just like the inspiration of working with other people and learning from them and seeing their perspectives and getting their insights into stuff. Yeah.
And I can also relate to that on a personal level through this podcast specifically. I want to give a shout out to Sassenach, my second in command behind the scenes, gets it all done. Because, working in a team can give you a sense of like validation and fulfillment that working alone, like you said, can be kind of lonely and not as motivating. But then they can also, you know, like check you. You know, like if you put something out there, they'll check you to be the best that you can be, as opposed to shutting you down.
Exactly. Like when you're too isolated, you easily tend to be too convinced of yourself sometimes. This is how you can shape a certain egocentrism. And maybe put out stuff that is not that good and you think it's good, but since you don't interact with people about it, they can give you feedback as well. Like a good friend who tells you, yo, hey Vanya, that joke wasn't appropriate, that I wouldn't do that, you know. We need that feedback, and that's a very, very important one. There was something else I wanted to say about the sentence that you started that with, and I forgot, sadly, because my brain is having so many things. Sorry.
It was about having a sense of validation and fulfillment.
That was something else that I thought of. Damn it. It will come back if it's important.
So this next one, Foxel, is more focused at you, but Vanya, I'm sure you can touch on it. What are some of the biggest challenges in running long-term community projects, Burnout, scope creep, different versions, and how have you kept the team motivated through them?
There's one thing that's difficult, and two things, and they're actually connected. You assemble a crew of people that just want to make the best mod ever. So it can be like a huge brainstorming where there is so many ideas, people want to do so many things, and you'll be tempted to say yes to everything. That's the recipe for future creep, which totally did not happen with some Concord Stories. But as I said, we are here to learn, and lesson learned, to be fair. And that's the thing. You just have these people like, hey, let's make this, and it sounds amazing. You want to make it. But then the years pass, and you're like, okay, so where are we at this point? Oh my god, we are not like whoosh. And you start actually saying no to ideas, which is honestly the most horrible things I have to do. I hate it. I hate saying no, because we have people from different places in the world, so you don't know how they would, and different background, different way of seeing things. And sometimes it could just be seen like you saying, no, it's bad. But no, I didn't say, no, it's bad. I said no, because we need to carry the whole thing from start to finish. And if we do that, we are not going on the finish line. We're just going slower. And it's not easy. And sometimes you also have to think about what can we cut without cutting the soul of the project. What can we cut without making it too visible. And it's something that's very hard, and I didn't know before, because before my experience was being with the Sim Settlement team with King Gaff, and doing an amazing job at cutting things. Yeah, you don't have future creep with him, trust me. But that's something that I thought, okay, that's easy. No, it's not. You learned that with the years. I'm pretty sure you did future creeps years ago, trust me. And that's something that Vanya will have to see, I guess. But I feel like there is a good thing in saying not hiccups in a project. You know, when you see a project that have some difficulties, it's a great thing, because you learn from it. Like, okay, so we did that this time, let's do it a bit differently next time. And I feel like it's important to learn from it, and not just saying, okay, let's do it again but better. No, that doesn't work. You have to do things differently this time.
Well, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm glad you had to go through that, because bad decisions make great stories. Mm-hmm. And here we are.
And I also got a lot of inspiration from my previous wall carry when I saw so many projects going through the wall. It's a great experience. You learn a lot, trust me. I was in IT before, so yeah. A lot of crashes.
And Vanya, you're starting to get a little taste of Foxel's experience now. How are you mitigating some of it?
I already said no to a couple of things. So
Vanya's like,
it's. I have how can I put it the best and the most comprehensive without giving away too much. I had a bunch of suggestions already where I was like no, and people were like, why? And I'm like, because it doesn't fit my vision. Period. It's hard, yes, and some ideas may actually be good, but then you're like, hey, I like this idea, but it doesn't fit with what I have planned. And that's sad, but then on the other hand, you can always be like, but you know what? You should do it. You should sit down and work on that one when you find the time. That always has been like my like motivational ending of that, to like give them something to like chew on, of not feeling like completely neglected, but be like, okay, they don't take my idea not because they wouldn't believe in it. They don't take my idea because it doesn't fit the vision, and they want me to work on that regardless, or like they give me permission to work on that. And this is kind of how it also came up with Concord Stories to some degree, where I realized, hey, I have so many cool ideas that just wouldn't fit into Concord Stories right now because it's already so big of a mod already. And I was like, I could put that into an own mod. And then like more and more things assembled, and I was sitting in front of this big folder structure of things where I was like, that would fit into an own mod by itself. But how about we make it into a mod that also takes place somewhere else? You know, that's how basically all these things came together then at the end. And this is where I always like to motivate people, like, hey, if I have an idea, write it down, because once it's written down, that's already half the job done, essentially. Because sometimes you write it down, and as you write it down, you have another idea, and another idea, and another idea. And just like that, big ideas can form, and that's exactly how it happened with Fallout Iron Curtain. At the end of the day, it was just sitting together with a friend who's sadly not here today and not part of the crew anymore, but we were just having a beer talking about how funny and how funny it would be to have a Fallout on the Oktoberfest in Munich, because of seeing how the drunken people were like roaming around like little ghouls, you know. Like, that's basically how the idea started. I was like, yeah, Fallout in Germany would be nice. But I wouldn't let it take place in Munich. I mean, Cold War, of course, we have to take Berlin. And that's like how ideas come up sometimes, you know? So essentially, Fallout Iron Curtain was an idea of a beer. It doesn't get any more German than that.
So you actually just answered the next question about what inspired the Fallout Iron Curtain. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into it on you bringing the post-war Berlin to life. How does it connect to real history, your background, and Fallout's themes of division and survival?
So that's three parts of that question. I will have to hit you back up on some of those again. So the first one was like the...
how does it connect to real history?
How does it connect to real history? Well, obviously we did have East and West Germany. It is a historical fact that after World War II, Germany was divided by the allies of France, Britain, the USA, and then on the other end, the USSR. And that's really where the story begins, essentially, with that whole topic, of course. The only difference is that we just decided that, okay, the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, didn't fall in 1991. That's like the only difference that it is, or 1990, sorry. That's the only difference essentially from real history, and then from that point onward, come up with crazy stuff. So until that day, it shares a lot of history. There's only a few altered events until then that would hence allow the GDR to still exist, because of course the reason why it fell was a whole list of reasons of bad decisions that happened before, and some of those decisions were no longer a thing. Or are no longer a thing in the story how we have written it in our timeline. And that's the common component.
And then how does it connect to your background?
Well, I mean, I grew up in Germany. I was born and raised here, essentially, but I have an descendancy? Words?
Are descended from?
Yeah, descended from, I have a, descendancy then, yes, from Eastern Europe, and I studied political history with a waypoint on the USSR, and so it always has, Berlin and essentially East Germany has been a big part of German history, and also hence my own history, especially when you know how my channel used to be like, where I made this kind of parody show of East versus West. It has been a very active part of my living, of my being, essentially. And it's also very engraved in modern day Germany. Still, the East-West divide is still a thing in Germany to this day, to a certain degree. And I've personally had it now a couple of times in my life where people do not realize what a kind of great gift we have, because back then, if a war would have broken out, it would have been on German soil, and it would have been pretty terrible. And I feel like a lot of Germans these days that are so self-entitled with like, oh, I'm allowed to say anything in this world, really lost kind of the relation to what it used to be like here in Germany. And at the same time, you have those who are complaining like, we don't progress at all, whatnot, was like, hey, if you look back just like 50 years, we progressed a lot from that point onwards. And it kind of is like a personal statement in that regard as well, of course, to really show like, hey, yo, please value that freedom that you have, because if you take it for granted, you are abolishing it on the long run. And that's something that me as a cult dropout have no understanding for, when people like abuse their freedom of speech to just spread hateful messages that have no substance really, other than, spreading hate. And I had to earn my right of freedom. I had to manually drop out. I had to pack my bags. I had to cut off every single contact I ever owned. I had to go through so many struggles, not only like, mentally, but also financially from that. That took me years to recover from, to really earn my free speech. And to see people these days take it so lightly is just absolutely infuriating to me personally, and I find it very insulting to the legacy that Germany has built. And it's insulting to those people who have built up Germany to what it has become. And that's essentially all these many factors that inspired me to be like, okay, I want to create something, that really scopes in all of that and really represents like, hey, this is what we could have ended up as if we wouldn't have done this. And maybe rethink the next time before you open your mouth again about freedom of speech in like the East, West and whatnot. So yeah, there's a big pile, a big bundle that we could now string open, but that would, I think, would be very, very, very much too long.
I'll get to the third part of this, but I just want to comment that I'm sure there's going to be some serious tones in this. You know, it'll stick to the Fallout experience of, you know, the comedic effect, but we have a saying that, you know, like if, you know, like if you don't laugh about something bad that's happened, you know, like you'll cry about it. So, you know, finding the humor or finding a way to make light of some things is a coping mechanism that we humans do. And you know, who's to say, you know, which one's better or worse? Sometimes you need one, sometimes you need the other.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it has been a very big endeavor of mine to make sure that the mod is both that it has its jokes in it, the classic Fallout jokes, you know, but also makes sure that it's in a serious tone of like confronting the player essentially with certain things, because we are in Germany. We don't understand any fun. We only know work.
Nein.
Arbeit. And so with the Iron Curtain project, greenFoxel, I'll shift over to... Oh, well, actually, wait, no. Vanya, did you want to touch on the Fallout's themes of division and survival?
Again? The what?
How does the Iron Curtain connect to Fallout's themes of division and survival?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So I always found it weird in Fallout how, for example, Fallout 4, 200 years after the bombs, and there's barely anything rebuilt, you know? And it seemed kind of odd to me, where it was like, well, if it was like 50 years after the bomb, I may get it, but 200 years? And this is what kind of led me then to decide, you know what, it would be very interesting to have a scenario where it's like just a few years after the bombs with like lots of radiation, and really pose a survival challenge to the player and really give him a reason to rebuild. Like one thing that really was a major catalyst for that is how they designed it in Fallout 76, where they had some updates where, you know, certain locations were built up from one update to the next. And I really liked that idea where it was like, yeah, that's exactly how essentially we want to see the world transform as well. So building Berlin up from the ashes again for the God, who knows how many times now, is like a very, I think, a very nice idea, while combining also the survival elements of course, like heavy radiation due to the bombardment. And also as that with a nuclear winter, with like all that cryo effect everywhere, where you have to like be aware of that. And then, of course, with that, utilizing the U-Bahn tunnels, the metro tunnels of Berlin as well, that can protect you from all of that, but having factions that own part of those. So it's having some metro vibes there as well. So yeah, a lot of things came together where I was like, oh my god, if we can merge like, you know, basically like a Stalker, Metro and Fallout into one, basically, at the end of the day, that's kind of how you could imagine Fallout Iron Curtain in that regard.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was...
yeah, no, that was
okay.
was perfect. And you mentioned the tunnels, and I'm sitting there thinking of the tunnels, and then some of the counter culture that you know, was in Berlin at the time. I think the punk, you know, like there was the punk / anarchists, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That may have been driven underground at some point. So it would be fun to see like a raider substitute for the the punks. You
will definitely see a lot of references like that, where if you know history, if you know the culture of Berlin, you will have good laughs. I can guarantee you that.
Awesome. And then Foxel, we will shift into your section now. What is it like building the foundational brick elements and modular Berlin architecture?
It's interesting because you shift the paradigm. You're no longer the person that will pick the pieces to make the big scenario. You are actually making the pieces yourself, and that's something that I think I see what you reference with Concord Story. So I will explain this way. In Concord Story, I'm the lead, so I have to have the big vision on everything and make sure that the project go from point A to point B. So if I was going to start making 3D assets on Concord Story, for example, I would just spend my whole time making 3D assets and the project would go nowhere, because you have a micro view which clash a lot with the macro one, macro. And it's actually very interesting to make the different pieces, because you can just make whatever you want, and it's interesting to get something different. And I played some total conversion mode, like for London, to name this one, where I just enjoyed very much having a different table from usual. Oh, this is a British table. I see it. I know it. I just the computer and forum. They are amazing. I just love the different vibes. You can see that you are something in a different place. And most of the time the idea is that, okay, you want to make a 3D asset, you have to think, okay, is it important to the story? Because you can have unique assets that are used one time, but if they are important, they are definitely important there. Or is it not important, but you're going to see it everywhere? Okay, like you can go, for example, for the second example, you got the construction barrier of Berlin, which it's a construction barrier, but seeing it everywhere. Oh, you're getting the Stasi knocking at your door.
That's my bomb alarm.
So yeah, you got this very basic thing that will give a personality to the mod, and then you got unique free assets like the Alexanderplatz
Weltzeituhr.
Weltzeituhr, Dankeschön, which is basically a big clock in Alexanderplatz, which is basically the Platz near the huge tower in Berlin with the Kugel. Kugel in English, what's the word again?
Sphere.
Sphere, thank you.
I'm the official interpreter.
I learned German before English, so sometimes, yeah.
Just no Mozartkugel.
Yeah. So I think it's important to give personality, and I will just bounce back to something that we said before about the Fallout universe and Iron Curtain. One thing that we do a lot when you think about assets or ideas in general is like, okay, so let's see real history, and let's see if there were crazy things. Okay, now crazy thing that didn't happen but would be interesting to explore. There's the fact that that in East Germany everything is in Cyrillic alphabet. Boom, it was a plan, it was scrapped, but boom, it's in the mod. Or the idea of turbo plane that was made by France. Boom, it's we are thinking about it, every little ideas. And it's also interesting to think about, okay, let's have the GDR and make it worse. Let's have the France make it worse. And I feel like amplifying things in the way to drive the point across like amplifying, like, okay, like let's show what happened if things didn't go the way it went in real life. So yeah, there might be a lot of crazy things, but when you will play the mod, you will have to think these things could have happened because they were fault. They were just cancelled at the last minute. Like Vanya mentioned the fact that Germany would have been a very bad place to be in case of World War III. Well, just one thing. France had nuke. The first plan of France in case of World War III was nuking every single centimeter of Germany, even if the Soviets were the aggressor. So, because France was paranoid, and I think it would be a great way to show all this behavior of the Cold War in Fallout universe, because Fallout is basically what happens if technology went amok without control, and the government just didn't stop. Like in our timeline, like you have no Gorbachev, you have no treaty to stop weapons of destruction. Like I forgot the name, but you know the treaty that was signed by Reagan and Gorbachev that basically limits arm race. Well, that didn't happen in Fallout, so you have the bad ending, but it's not the ending because you have the life after nukes. Yeah, we have been off subject.
you this is obviously one mod, the Iron Curtain, but essentially bringing it down to the basic element of a table, you're building two worlds, because there is the East and the West, where one side you're gonna have things and accessibility to stuff that doesn't exist on the other side of what was the wall, or might still be the wall. So you're almost doubling, the items that you are making in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely. That's one reason why we've been actively talking in the recent meetings with the crew to divide the mod, for a matter of fact, into two departments even, so that one department doesn't even really know what the other department does to some degree even in that regard, and only like those who like implement the main stories and whatnot, and like project leads, department heads are like more in the know of that. So we really can have this very isolative like development for each of them, and have them as two separate plugins, maybe even, where only like a main plugin for the main quest like puts them back together. But that's something we are still venturing out and like see how we can do it the smartest. But that is currently the plan, essentially. Yeah, to have like two entirely different worlds. You cross the board and you're like, where the hell am I now? That was one of my main goals, to really have like a very diverse world in that regard. That you like, as that cross the border and you can literally feel, okay, I'm kind of still in the same region, in a different country that's still somewhat the same like the other one, just different. And I feel like that's a very, very fun way to play with, especially with, as Fox already has taken away with the Gorilla-sized Strömen, for example, that, for a matter of fact, was a plan by the Stasi at some point in the future. Things like these, where you sit there, be like, wow, it's just wild to make everything so different. We even have thought about clocks that run like the complete opposite way around, just to oppose the West, like things like these that are just absolutely wild and crazy, but would absolutely fit with like the paranoia and like this absolutely intense, uptight stiffness of some governmental bodies, to be like, no, we have to do it this and that way to really like put a point through. Or like, for example, that in the East there is no red cross at all, because cross would mean Christianity, and we're not for religion. Things like these are so fun to venture in, and this is also why, of course, we know that this mod would be very huge already by the whole asset load, which is why we try to reduce the asset load on the other ends. Like, for example, like I talked away earlier with like decals for snow instead of all the textures, and try to save where we can. So it's still something that the player can afford to download and install on their machine. And if we really make it two plugins, maybe we are still talking about that, how that would be a clever way to make it that you can have one plugin independent from the other one installed. So you play the one side, and when you go to the other one, you just flip it inside out, basically. Like you throw out the one plugin, put in the other one, and continue there. Somewhat of that. We don't know exactly how to do that from the technical aspect yet fully, but we are investigating it.
So you mentioned something with the decals, and it leads us into this next question, because I got an anecdotal story with it. Can you walk us through a specific dev diary moment, which I know you've been putting out your YouTube videos, or challenge you've overcome recently, and what made it especially rewarding? The one that comes to mind for me is in, I think, one of your latest videos for the DDR's like Congress, the Congress building. And you were using and you were using the snow texture to kind of put out in places, or not texture, decal maybe. You tried to put it over the stairs, and it started doing some fun stuff.
Yeah. So the projected decals, of course, have one big downside, and that is that they're projected. That means when you have a vertical wall and you have the decal being projected horizontally onto the ground, it's like dragged into the length, basically, and you can see it, and it's like just those very ugly gray lines. One way to get around that is just simply to reduce the overall size of that decal to just the top, and then like put another one there. That is one way to do it, but making that with a staircase is of course a very annoying work because you have to do that every single little stair. So some assets we will not get around putting in a material swap, but the benefit is we already do have the snow textures in the game. So far I only used one single snow texture for everything you see in the game hereupon. And that I think is one of those savvy methods that we have to rely on. Does it always look good? No. You will see some details where you will sit there, and even I sit there and I'm like, man, this bothers me so much, I should change it. But then we always have to remember, hey, textures are something we can still swap out at the very end if we really need to and have that space left. So a lot of these ventures in that regard give us the like one essential thing that I've been doing now is like especially investigating those kind of things and see, okay, what can we do, what can we not do, and what is a thing that we can delay for now and like have another investigation towards the end again. Like what is the temporary solution for now? And I think that was a very smart decision to do that because it takes off a lot of like pain with the other level designers in the future.
And Foxel, do you have a challenge you've overcome recently?
Let me think. Oh yeah, I have one. More like 3D level-wise, not 3D. 3D assets. Sorry. The Minitel. The Minitel is like a small type of computer that was up the range in the 90s. So it's like a computer, but it has so many different keys on the keyboard, and you just have to make one single 3D item that the player will be very close to when he looks at the terminal. So you want to save on polygons, but the screen of the old school you say CRT, right, for the screens? That's too much. But you
Maybe.
see these old school screens, they are round more than flat, right? The thing is, when you are in the game and you look at a terminal and you interact with it, it's flat. So I had basically to make two versions of the screen at the same time. So one will disappear when you actually look at it, otherwise you will look at nothing. And the resolution of the flat screen had to be way bigger than the rest. Otherwise, you can imagine the problem if you zoom in. And that or the keys. One thing that you have to do when you do a 3D model is called unwrapping. So you see, for example, when you are doing a 3D item, the 3D item is a block, is the box, right? Okay, like this, all right? Yeah,
very nice box.
Trying to hide the brand. Like, don't want to make free publicity. Well, okay. So this 3D item, it has different faces. So your texture is in 2 dimensions, right? And what you want to do is transform this 3D item into 2D. So what you do is like, imagine I have a scissor. I just cut here, here, and here, and then I just cut flat this thing. That's called unwrapping. That's how we transform the 3D item into 2D ones. And the problem when you have a lot of polygons, how do? You're not going to do all the keys at once, because the key on your keyboard, you only are interested into the letter, not the rest. You don't care. So basically I had to divide the keys into several components and just have all the sides of the key are the same texture, because otherwise it will be way too much things. And you have to think about all these little things it cheats, making empty spaces into the 3D model, otherwise it will be way too much texture. So yeah. And that was the last little thing I had on the 3D side. I used the same trick with the piano. Actually, the white keys are not separate, but it's just one huge flat key. that will have a texture that will make it appear as different keys on the keyboard. Because no, I'm not going to make 85 keys. Nope. So you have to do tricks like that. Like you have to sometimes like, okay, is it worth it that I make a separate 3D model, or can I just trick the player with the Vanya? You, the texture expert. What's the name of the texture layers that gives the deepness? Not deepness. Damn it.
You mean the normal map?
Yeah, normal map. Yes. Yeah. You have to do that. Basically, the map says how deep the reflection goes. And you can trick the player to think that there is a hole here, but there's no hole.
So to pick Foxel up on that topic for those who are interested, this monster can is perfect. Sorry for that advertisement, but well, what can I do right now, right?
It's fine.
Monster's free to sponsor me if they want to.
Yeah, hear that, boys?
So you have like a material that consists of multiple layers that we refer to as textures. So when people say, in general, like gamers, oh, this is just a new texture, they're technically wrong. It's a new material. Because a material has multiple textures. We have the so-called diffuse map, which in this case is like all the colors on it. So we have like this one in silver, we have this one in white, this one in black, and so on. Then you have the normal map, which is responsible for the surface structure. So at this can, we have like a very, very nice little rippled texture to it. I don't know if you can see it, but you can feel it. You can also see it over here between those two M's here. That's part of the normal map. Then you have the specular map, which is responsible for the reflection or the glossiness of an object. So for example, if I was to replicate this monster can now in Fallout, on the diffuse map, this M would be just silver, and then with that specular map, I can make it that like reflecting chromatic, where I can maybe reflect you all in here right now. We see some colors from the German flag on your screen, Dylan. There you go, somewhat like that. There's also other maps like the glow map, if you want something to glow in the dark and whatnot. That's the things that we're referring to with all those different maps for the explanation. So free lesson right there on textures.
You know that now we have to do a trick like that in the game, right?
A monster. I mean, we have Atomic's energy. That is from Salzburg.
I know Leninade is trademarked, but maybe there's a Stalinade.
Stalinite was made by another modder for a communist bunker player home. I've been thinking about stuff there though. There's stuff that I thought about. I remember with my old channel branding, I once was writing the owner of the Leninite brand, which was a very shady email, but it was the actual email, and I don't wanna roast anyone, but they certainly are missing out on good marketing opportunities. That's for sure.
Definitely, and perfect subject matter. So I only understood a portion of that, but I'm sure our aspiring modders out there would be soaking that in like a sponge. So they should be thanking you for that little free lesson.
Whenever there's the question out there, Foxel and I set stream every Monday. Whenever you have any question about modding, you're free to join us there on Twitch and YouTube, depending on when we stream. I plan on also streaming on YouTube. I just have to set that up yet, but yeah.
Certainly. Go find them. They're out there. We'll drop the links. So how does the shared team and cross-pollination between Concord Stories and Iron Curtain strengthen both projects?
Well, we share experience, we share data, we share knowledge, essentially, and that's really what this relationship consists of. I think it's a very mutual benefit for both parties that we share those knowledges with each other, and also partially the team. A lot of people from Concord Stories are also in Iron Curtain and vice versa. Because we already know each other and we know how each other works, and we have like all like sorted out the people that we worked with best And in that regard, yeah, that's really what it melts down to. Also, the same with assets. Like, we have a bunch of assets where we're like, hey, we can use this for Concord Stories. We can also use it for Iron Curtain and whatnot kind of situations there as well. And also put in some little cheeky winks here and there between both mods, referencing each other, of course, because that's just a thing that we devs love to do.
We love a good Easter egg.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also share different roles. For example, Concord Story is a mod that has been running already, okay, not 3 years, but soon. So, for example, level design, we don't need that much level design these days. I mean, except when I just look at my to-do list and like, oh shit, we forgot to do this level design. Oops. But other than that, we don't need new level design because we are the finalization phase, basically. So that's a way to say, okay, we don't need the level design there, but there is plenty of future level design to do in Iron Curtain, for example. So it's this type of things, and sometimes you have different tasks that don't need in one project, but oh, well, now it's the time for this project to do that, so let's go. And as Vanya said, we share a huge part of the team and also the return of experience. So yes.
Also, if anyone out there is interested in joining either of our crews, we're always willing to get more people on board on the Iron Curtain Discord server. I have for Iron Curtain specifically a Google form to fill out that I then, whenever I find the time, look into. Because Iron Curtain will need way more staff right now as we speak, because that's currently our crucial Achilles heel at this moment, that we don't have enough workforce to wing this. So yeah, just a little word out there.
How many years in is Concord Stories?
I think I started that in September of 2003. I think I would be right, because Chapter 3 of Sim Settlements released around summer 2003. 2023, my god.
I was just about to correct you on that, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, it's a big mod.
I know game project that started 20 years ago, so yeah.
And then Vanya, when did you pull the go button for Iron Curtain? Officially.
March 2026 is where I officially started. So just 3 months ago, essentially. But in those 3 months, my goodness, have we done much? I'm very impressed with how fast we've been in the past 3 months. Big contributor to that, of course, is that I work on that like almost full time, which I cannot afford doing anymore by finances. So that will certainly take a hit very soon when I will apply to jobs, or otherwise we see some major funding coming in. But it's a mod, so you won't be able to get big investors, because usually you invest to get money out of that again, and for a mod, very unlikely. So yeah, because you cannot just sell assets from somebody else as your own mod product. In that regard, you can only make a donation thing, like, yeah, you can donate us for our efforts in general. That's the only thing what you can do as a mod in that regard. And so that's a little bit of a struggle right now in that regard, which is also why I'm actively looking for more staff, so that if really everything breaks apart in that regard and I have no other choice, we at least have some backup in terms of workforce.
And mentioning the need for a larger workforce ties into our next question for those who might be interested. What's something the modding community or outsiders often misunderstand about the emotional investment, time commitment, or quiet joys of this work?
A lot.
Where to begin?
Well, I think most consumers, so gamers, essentially kind of underestimate the amount of work, heart and soul we put into our projects, not only as modders, but also game devs at normal studios. And a lot of decisions are really bound by like investment. Like, if you don't have the investment to cover the workforce, then what do? You know, like for us modders, the significant difference between a modding crew and a real game development studio is really the funding factor, that we only can work in our free time on it, which means the stuff will take way longer, of course. And you never know what can happen to any one of us. While in a business, in a company, you usually have people who are getting paid to work on this. And this is why they can get stuff done in a little bit better amount of time in quotation marks. Though with that also come other issues, of course. It's not just that you have that money free at your leisure. You have to be very precise of what you spend it, because sometimes, you know how technology is yourself, something just doesn't work and you don't know why. And then suddenly you have this issue of explaining a manager who has, or like an investor, a shareholder, whatever. You have to explain them then, like, okay, we sadly will need more money because we encountered an unexpected error that we don't know how to fix right now. We need somebody to be paid to investigate this. And that's then where you really get into trouble with those. And if they don't give you the money, you're out of business, because you cannot pay your employees to work on that. And let's face it, everyone should, at least in my humble opinion, I feel like everyone who does something for society should get paid for it, you know? And in the end of the day, game development and modding is art that also deserves a decent pay. And that's, I think, what most people kind of forget about this whole business, between modding and also game development. It's different challenges. Yes, they are similar, but it's still very different challenges that come with different circumstances. There you go. So yeah, and that's, I think, what most people misunderstand about it, and that's one of my missions whenever I go live and like make my videos, to make people understand, yo, hey, both sides of that business, either doing it full throttle with payment versus the one who does it in the free time, both have their own challenges. And yeah, to maybe be a little bit more appreciative of that, because I've already had a lot of comments where I really had to hold back not to forget my good factuality sometimes.
There's a sentence I read a lot is, oh, see, the modders did it better than the studio. Yes, the modder did it for free. If you had the company having the luxury to not pay the folks, yeah, of course, they themselves would do as much. It's just that when you work in your free time, and that's a lot of time, and you got so many people united, yeah, you can afford to not care about what's the word, accounts, you know, like you don't care about how many do I spend. Well, I spend nothing. Okay, factually, if you have a big mod project, you still have some spending, you know, for the website, for the organization, etc. But it's nothing compared to a real project where you have to spend funds and ask for the manager, hey, can we get money for this feature? So yeah, that's essentially one of the other differences as well. Like we of course, the reason why so much was going on in the past 3 months is because I decided, okay, I'm a creator, I make my money with creation, I may as well, you know, show how I do that stuff, and just commit to that one. Because before that, I of course used to stream way more like gaming and whatnot, and people are not really that interested in the game development process than they are in the consumption of these, and that's something that I can evidently say by numbers. Every time I try again with like modding, the numbers are like half of what I get when I play a game, even though there's nothing, in quotation marks, productive going on, essentially, you know? And yeah, I feel like that is another factor that is not to be neglected, that at the end of the day, it also comes down to every single one of us to show that support actively. And yeah, it's complicated, of course, because when you don't understand what a person is doing and you feel like, you know, too shy to ask, of course you let them do and just move on. So it's a tough business, and it's a tough situation to be in, no matter in which shoes you are, essentially, at the end of the day. But I feel like if everyone, devs, managers, consumers, whatnot, if all of them would establish a little bit more communication with each other and a little bit more common ground, I feel like that business could be way more blooming than it does already.
Yeah, and for you guys, time, passion, expenditures, who knows, your PC might end up burning up, and then you gotta
Again.
replace all the parts on it.
That may happen again. This is one thing I had just at the start of this year, of course, that my old PC gave up, and I had an investment of over $2,000 into a new PC, which hurt me quite severely, and I feel the fallout right now pretty bad. Literally the fallout, because I'm working on Fallout. Yeah, okay. Anyways,
What was the meme again before? The Stasi likes your joke so much they want to see you.
yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct with that. Yes, and yeah, well, let's see how it goes from here on out. I try to, of course, balance it out a little bit, but I also understand that, like, if people, of course, can also invest into a project. We see that all the time with like indie game studios, but the problem is the people don't have any money right now, and if the people don't have money that they can invest into projects like that, or like give out to people, those people will suffer the consequences from that too. So I do realize I'm in a very luxurious position, and it's a true privilege. This is why I'm so thankful for it every day that I can do this, because I know it could end any given day. Once the people are really drained financially entirely and don't have, the funds to be like, yo, hey, Vanya, I like what you're doing. Here, have a €5 tip. And the less people you have who can afford that, the more likely it is that projects like these will strand at some point and like take even longer because the funding isn't there, and you have to then, I mean, at the end of the day, I also need to pay rent. I need to eat food and whatnot, and somehow I need to get that money from somewhere. And I'm not happening to be a millionaire who has like, all those potatoes lying left and right, like, so it's yeah, it's a very tough spot to be in. We sadly have this world with the money, and that's just how it is. Best we can do is just really do our best that the money flows again into the people who like to spend it and not those who just hoard it.
Yeah, and I would say I like to equate it to, I think people have it as a thing on their Patreons and stuff. Buy me a coffee. The price of a coffee, $5 to $10, depending on if you're going to the Starbucks or the local cafe. But in numbers, as a group, we can make great things happen on a level like that. I can't go out to a fast food place without spending $20-25. So to take that and put it into something that I'm passionate about, or something that I believe in, a project I believe in, to me is absolutely worthy. Even in the harsher times that we're in financially, it's really about trade-offs, and that's something that I personally can trade off for. Well, looking to, what do we got? And als over 16,000.
Okay.
Voiceapalooza 2024.
Yeah, just an example, for the example of people just contributing and helping the other. You're showing the other one. So, okay, this is the one of last year. I need to put it on the wall. So this is the Voiceapalooza. It's an event that we take part, and not only Vanya and myself, but also a huge part of the Concord Stories team, and Sim Settlements and other modders. And we just gather for a weekend to create a mod. So we will be streaming it, and before we stream it, there will be several streams where people can actually choose which type of enemies, which type of dungeon, etc., by contributing to a foundation. And every person during the weekend of the stream can donate. So that's how, the modders raise that amount for Alzheimer. And that's also an example of many people just converging, not only the modders, but also everyone that just watched the stream, that just participates, even if they didn't donate. Just this event made something happen. And I feel like the collective power is something that it is intrinsically linked with the modding community and the community in general. And I think it's great. So yeah, I was just having this little thing on the wall, like, hey, speaking of which.
No, it's perfect.
And it happens again 27 to 29 of June this year, and we'll still be there.
We'll have to link that one too, because I can't miss that. That sounds awesome. But speaking of the community, you guys do this for the fans and for yourselves, personal gratification. You guys obviously love doing this. So looking forward to the potential releases of some of these. I know Iron Curtain is a long ways away, but Concord Stories is heading towards late 2026, possibly Merry Modding Days, and with Iron Curtain ongoing. How do you hope that these projects change how players experience Fallout? What is your goal?
I will just react to the date that you just gave. I haven't announced any date for Concord Story at this point. Just to be clear.
we can hope. We can hope.
I will give you the whole it's going to be released when it's going to be released, because we make a mod for free. We have the possibility, contrary to real work, to just do whatever you want and just decide, okay, now it's perfect, let's go, which you cannot do if you work for a company. So yeah, just this little parenthesis.
Maybe Merry Modding Days 2027. You never know.
Yeah,
it could all come together.
I hope this one, however. I hope.
So what do you guys hope that these mods accomplish? How do you want the players to feel after experiencing these? It's a deep one.
I can go. Well, I want the players, after they are done playing Fallout Iron Curtain, like the main story, I want them to cry and sob on my shoulder and be like, oh, this is so good. Of course, obviously, you know, no. No, I really want people to think, I want this mod to really initiate a thinking process in people. I want them to think about human rights. I want them to think about, okay, what could have happened? You know, I want them to think like, hey, me, a single individual, can make a change. I think a single individual has way more power than they give themselves credit. Because very often we see people who are hungry for power being in very weak positions and just playing a bluff. And if one person would have stood up to them, the bluff would have been exposed and they would have failed. This is why every single individual has way more power than they give themselves credit. And that's essentially what I want to transfer to the people with that mod of like, yo, hey, there's so many things going on in this world that you may mourn from a distance or like even close up. But every person can do something. It doesn't have to be much, but if every person does a little bit, that's how we can improve the world a lot. Either with acts of simple kindness of just greeting your neighbor on a daily basis and checking in with them, or, you know, just being like, you know what, I just want to go right now onto a mission of, of a surplus from my fridge and giving it to the poor, whatever, you know, can be whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel like, as we had it just before, like when we as people come together as a group, with pure intentions, we can really do something great with our world. And that's essentially the giveaway that I want to give with this mod, together also with the good old narrative that war never changes.
And Foxel, can you do better than that?
Different themes will be more focused on Concord Story, this one, but there is one theme that come back a lot, is that the inaction of men of good allows the evil to win, and that evil is not by birth. Like, without spoiling the scenario too much, you as a player in Fallout 4, you just vanquish the Institute or help them win, you know. But thing is, have you changed the nature of people of the Commonwealth? Have they changed really? You just destroyed a big thing, but did you change the paranoia that existed? Paranoia is explored a lot in the mod. Have you changed the fact that people are corrupt because they don't care, because they have just spent so much time trying to survive, and they just see someone suffering and like, yeah, they are suffering, but I need to survive first, you know? And one of the faction, the Triggermen, take advantage of that. They take advantage of people not caring. They take advantage of people not saying anything. So they are creeping, and there's no way to just destroy them by a nuke, like the Institute. That you can't. You need actually to go to the root cause of this. And yeah, that's the theme. It's very important. And you have companions that their fate can change depending on your choices and depending on how they react to it. Even we have three companions. We have Dima, who is played by Vanya. We have Eve, which is a neutral companion. Okay, Dima is the good one. He's not a good choice, but he's okay. Compared to the two others, he's rather good. You know what I mean? Okay, he's neutral good, but he's still better than the other. Eve is really neutral, and she can help to do better, stay her course, or yeah, you can make her worse also, which is something. And you got this super mutant, which is basically a psychopath, and that has a huge trauma. And as long as you don't try to understand what happened to him, you say, okay, this is an asshole, this is a complete psychopath. But even himself can redeem in a way. So yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the main things that Foxel and I love doing, creating characters that are not fully good or fully evil, but that are just very grey, and the player can influence the outcome of their personality. That's one major idea that I had for the main factions of Follow Iron Curtain as well, that they all have skeletons in the closet, you know, that they all have good and bad aspects to it, that at the end of the day, none of them is really truly good at the end of the day, but it's like how you bring the best out of them at the end of the day. It's kind of like the route that I'm going there, because let's face it, every single one of us has skeletons in the closet. Everyone, myself included, did things they're not proud of, that were morally questionable or otherwise something that we deeply feel guilty, ashamed, or otherwise, bad for. But the question is like, what do you do with it? Have you learned your lesson? Will you turn it into more positive energy, or will you fester on that for the rest of your life and be a miserable piece of, insert your word here. So yeah, that's I think at the end what we want to create in terms of worlds, while also giving a fun gameplay experience to the player as well, with like really feeling like, hey, what I do matters. Because more and more we've been seeing games on the markets releasing where they're all rather, I wouldn't say soulless, but it felt for a lot of games lately like, okay, it really doesn't matter what you do. Because of course, many companies don't want to risk angering their customers with certain decisions like that. And rather play the safe route so they can secure the income so that the company stays profitable. That's the benefit that we have as modders, of course. We are not solely dependent on that. We can dare to do stuff like that and do statements like that. And that's, I think, at the end of the day, what really comes down there.
And I'm really glad to hear that about the character creation, because that complexity and gray area and influence on them, just to name a couple of my favorite games recently, would be Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Baldur's Gate 3, which, I mean, they're great in the graphics and the storytelling and such currently too, but that feeling that, you know, like it isn't just, you know, like black and white. There's the gray area, and things that you think you are doing that may be good are going to have an influence somewhere else that might not be, you know, and we as a consumer love to see that complexity, and that's what makes a great game replayable. Because really, like, yeah, you can have your favorite book that you like to read, you know, front page to back, but when the story can change, when you can see the variability, when you can see the consequences of your actions, is a draw in itself to what I think is the future of gaming, really. It has been done in the past, but there's definitely perfection that can be done to it, and an infinite amount of stories that can be told in that sense specifically.
Absolutely, yes.
And there's one great thing with the example of Baldur's Gate, without spoiling anything, don't worry, is that the characters that accompany you, they all state to you, the player, that they are very precise objective. And what I like the most is that the question, Is what they want at first a good thing for them? Is that really what they need? Because they all have traumas, and if you first playthrough, you do everything they want, it's a catastrophe. And it's awesome. If you have played Baldur's 3, you probably know what I mean. And then you play different times, do things differently, see how it fold. And even the secondary character have different resolution. Yeah, you can roleplay the game all the time. I just don't roleplay all the game all the time, otherwise I will not do Concord Story.
Right.
Don't try.
So, shifting back to the community, for aspiring modders or creators that happen to be watching, what practical advice would you give on starting small, finding collaborators, and sustaining your passion over the long haul?
If you have a dream your heart desires, chase it. Because life is too short to not do it, in my opinion. And always surround yourself with the right people that you really feel gut-wise, healthy with. And I think there's no shame in being like, yo, hey, I don't feel safe around this person, around this individual, I'm just going to move on. That is, at the end of the day, respect towards yourself and also the other person as well. You kind of avoid a major conflict happening with that. So yeah, I think that's the number one priority. I think that should be for you when you are a modder, because you won't get any financial benefit out of that anyway. May as well make it fun and make sure that you find the right people that you also, wouldn't mind to have a beer with, for example, or like if you don't drink beer, any other beverage of your choice. Yeah, that's what I think is the most important thing. Like, that's one thing I got to experience with Concord Stories and also Empire Wise very early on, that if you found the right people to surround yourself with, things just are so much easier, because then it no longer feels like a chore. It doesn't feel like a must. It feels like, I want to do this. It feels really like something you're, passionate about together with other people. And that's like a key factor that goes into any job, I think. If you have a team that really sticks together well, that that feels safe around each other, that really is like half the work already, or that gets half the work done already, because then everybody feels motivated. And yeah, don't be afraid to also like reach out to people. A lot of us can seem very intimidating due to how busy we are, like our online presence sometimes, like, oh, this modder knows so much, he's so big, whatever. You never know. Maybe they're like, yo, hey, I like your attitude, I like, the way you talk to people, whatever. It can be little things like that we will pick up on and be like, yo, hey, I'm interested in what you do. That I think is way more worth than your skill set at the end of the day, because you can be the most skilled modder who knows everything inside out, even though doubtful that you can do that. But if you're a shitty person, nobody's going to want to work with you. And then you sit there alone and it will take forever. So yeah, that's why I think character, building strength, going out more, touching grass, as the youngsters say these days. Yeah, make sure to like, get out of your cave once in a while, to develop some social skills is very, very important to get things done, because that's how you find the right people as well, and you can grow together with them. And that's, I think, part of the journey, and especially teamwork, as I said beforehand in the topic of teamwork, that really drives people at the end of the day.
And Foxel?
Yeah. The thing about the person being a team player, being more important than being skilled, remind me so much of experience that I've got at work years ago. So we were a team of 5, and yeah, good vibes, good mood. We hang out together after work, etc. Yeah, and we got this one guy, a genius. I mean, he was very skilled, but it was the guy that would just arrive at 7:30 in the morning, because we worked very early, but we didn't have the time to do the coffee. We just arrived, and the guy was like, "Hey, this, blah 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 blah. Dude, can we have a coffee first and just go back into the things?" And it was conflictual, aggressive, and it's of the production of the team just collapsed because just he was there. So imagine that is annoying at work, but imagine that in a project. Yeah, you have to get to gather people that you like working with, because you just want to have fun with them, and we want to have fun with people that you can trust and with people that you know are on the same page. And one advice that I also give to people is okay, so you are in a mod project. There are plenty of rules. Some people have different hats. Okay, so they have different perspective, but some people can be very specialist. Someone that will, for example, write a lot. It's important, I think, to have every part of the mods exchanging with the others and helping one role to understand what's the difficulties of this role. Like, for example, you have plenty of ideas for scenario, but this guy have to implement all of that in the level design. So if you have them both working together, they can realize what is it for the other. And speak of empathy, one thing that I notice a lot is that there was a lot of projects that are awesome, etc., but people that have great ideas and they just forgot to ask themselves the question, what about the player? Like, does it have a meaning for the player? Like, what do you bring to the player? Like, okay, your character is cool, etc., but will the player just listen to his whole monologue, then write a book? I don't know. Like, always think what's in it for the player. Like, what's this story, what's this building, what's this function will bring into him. Like, it's important to reconcile the gameplay pool and the roleplay, because it's a thing I saw in many projects before, not in modding but different indie projects, is that you have a pool that was, especially in RPGs projects, like you got a pool with a background, huge roles that would write tons and tons of background, etc., and you got the technical pool, and the two just clashes because the roleplay had so many ideas and the technique guy were like, we can do that, it's impossible, there's just too much thing. Yeah, so empathy is important, I would say.
Absolutely. And you stated on something I think is really important for games in general, that I think a lot miss the mark is, why should I care? When you're playing a game, like, another one I forgot to mention is Detroit Become Human. Your actions have consequences. And you really get emotionally invested in characters. So for the player, one of the questions is, why should I care? And if you answer that in an adequate way, whatever you're working on will succeed. So coming to the ending, or close to it, I wanted to ask you guys if there's anybody in the community, assets, art contributors, playtesters, or fans or content creators that you guys would like to shout out as part of pivotal roles in these projects.
Foxel has to firstly take liquid courage there.
Yeah, it's not easy, because but honestly, I think I have the answer actually. I want to shout so many members of the project, but I will shout out people that are not the project actually for this one. So all these modding tools, we learned from them like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3 for you and 4 for me. But there was already so many tutorials on YouTube, on the internet, and all of this explanation, all of this testing knowledge brought to the community. And I will give some names like Dark Fox, Eleonora, Kingath, and I probably forget a lot of them.
Saturn.
Yes, Saturn, Saturn did. And they just did it they ask nothing in return. They just give it, they make so many videos to learn, and you just can learn how to mod just by watching the videos. Of course, you have to experiment because you know there's always little things, and it's just such a mindset that is great. You want to share the knowledge, you want to share the passion, because not only they share how to do stuff, but they also show you, okay, I did stuff, hey, you could too, you know, like, you're also motivated. And I feel like if I compare that, for example, to Starfield, I tried to mod Starfield a bit, I did a few mods, but it's way harder because you don't have all these decades of tutorial in Skyrim and Fallout. It's very hard. I mean, I'm pretty sure that nowadays it's better. It's just that since I started Concord Stories, I didn't have the time to return to it. But yeah, and of course I also want to shout out the whole crew. But yeah, but I feel
that's
like
perfect.
if we didn't have them, it would be way harder these days.
Yeah, I can defo also add to that. Like, all the tutorial creators really need a way bigger shout out. I think they're very underappreciated in their efforts, because I try to make tutorials for the CK. Like, just thinking about making a tutorial and structured in a comprehensive way, it's just so much work that you lose from other stuff as well. So it really is something that I appreciate a whole bunch. But I also want to shout out the people at Independent Fallout Wiki who have their own section about modding there, even where all these kind of infos are like completely gathered together, also with sometimes video links for stuff and whatnot, which is very, very useful. But above all, I think I want to shout out is Chris Collis, a good friend of mine with whom I had that beer about the idea of Fallout Iron Curtain, who's sadly not part of the crew because he's just too overwhelmed with other things in his life. But yeah, without him, I wouldn't have gotten that idea. And I guess at the end of the day, really every single one who's doing things like listening to this podcast right now, those people who come around and watch us do the stuff, even if it's just silent from a distance, just briefly checking in if we are still alive, kind of thing. And yeah, I really hope that everyone who can hear this, who can see me, and who's like aware of our projects will be able to be victorious over the battles that they don't tell anyone about.
You took the thunder on that one, because I was going to go right into thanking everybody who's watching this right now. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes into this, and if you've made it to this point, you're definitely a real one. Whether you're an aspiring modder, a friend I've met through the Fallout community, or just somebody who found this video and is interested in what you guys do, that you're all extremely important to the community as a whole. And so with that, I want to thank each and every one of you. But before we go, where can we find you guys on social media?
So I'm on Blue Sky, on Instagram, Blue Sky at JustWanya, Instagram it's at JustWanya76, on YouTube, of course, at JustWanya, Twitch at JustWanya, written with W and Y. I think that needs a clarification there, because I write it a bit different due to living in Germany. They don't know what a V is, and so we just write it with W. W, yes. Yeah. I think that's all the platforms I have. I'm very bad with social media, so if you find me anywhere else, I'm not on X. I do know that. There's an imposter on X, but other than that, yeah.
Is there the Google Doc you were talking about for anybody that's interested? Is that available through your Discord, or
yes,
how do
through
they get
the
a hold of
Fallout Iron Curtain Discord server? Once you have given yourself the sauerkraut role, you can then access the application channel where you have a direct Google form link, and that one takes a minute to realize what I did there. I found that a very clever idea, and then I got the word later on from a friend like, oh, there's like this German World of Warcraft who also calls this community the sauerkraut. I was like, high five.
Yeah, you also on Nexus. I was muted, I forgot to unmute myself, but you were also on Nexus.
Yeah, true. I'm also on Nexus Mods, obviously. Yes, of course. Also at JustWanya. Thank you. See, the most important things.
The mods.
And then Foxel, where can we find you at?
So you can find me at Nexus Mod. So that will be greenFoxel on YouTube. greenFoxel as well, where I published a lot of the diaries of Concord Story and also projects. You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky as well, but I need to make some efforts to publish more. But yeah, most of the time, we also have a Concord Story account on Blue Sky and Twitter, which is actually has more content than what I do. And a big shout out for Katerina, who is our manager for all this communication. She does an outstanding work. Yeah, because social media is not my forte, so kudos to her. Where am I again? Oh, and Nexus Mod, I said it again. We have a website named concordstory.com. Very important, this one.
I guess Discord, essentially. We both are also on Discord, so...
We have a Discord, very important.
And email, but...
Yeah, I think it's best if you reach me on Discord, because sometimes I have DMs on Nexus Mod, for example, and I just read them like 3 months later, like, oh, oops. Too late now, sorry.
And with that, I am Dylan with the Dungeon Dwellers Adventures. You're probably watching this on YouTube, but you can also check us out on Instagram and TikTok for our short content. We will see you in the next one.
See ya.
See ya.
Tschüssi.
Grüezi.
The communists had claimed everyone was happy in the workers' paradise and the Iron Curtain was only for defense. But in the divided city of Berlin, the real truth was there for all the world to see. The notorious Berlin Wall was constructed. This was in violation of the 4 power agreements. Windows and doors were bricked up. And every escape route along the 30-mile border was sealed off. Families and friends were forcibly separated. The grim face of communism turns their eyes to the freedom beyond the barricade. Leaving everything behind, this young border guard suddenly leaped across the red barrier to the free world.
The map of the Red Empire is dotted with the locations of forced labor camps.
Still, Khrushchev brazenly declares that communism will take over the United States from within. He boasts of a 1973 deadline for the downfall of the United States. Today, we and all the free world are faced with the dangerous consequences of Soviet and Red Chinese failure. America's liberty has been purchased with the blood and sacrifices of its patriots, whose ideals have made our country the refuge and symbol of hope for the oppressed peoples of the world. We must understand the source of our great strength in order to preserve the ideals which have nurtured it.